most people, when they look at their time in the military, they look at it as a chapter in a book, right? It's like, yeah. Like, don't look at it as a chapter in a book. Your time in the military, your time in the Army is a book unto itself. Now that book is done. Close that book, put it away. Don't start a new chapter. Start a whole new fucking book. Only go back to the book that is your military service once in a while to fondly reminisce. But don't live in that book. Don't dwell in that book. He's like, the people who get out of the military and succeed in life are the ones who can put that book down and only pick it up once in a while to open it up and reminisce and then put it back down. If you stay stuck in that book, I promise you, you will fail.
Welcome everybody again to Retire.Army, where we talk about all things retirement and transition out of the military. Today I'm sitting with Brandon Alborg, who served 16 total active years of service, and he is currently a freight conductor for CSX. He was a 13 Bravo and a staff sergeant when he got out of the military, originally from Independence, Kentucky. Welcome, Brandon. Welcome to the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
So I got to ask, and I usually start on a weird kind of point, but being out from the military, how long have you been out now?
So I got out March 13th of 2022, and that was 1 week after my 16-year anniversary of joining the military. So I've been out just over a year now.
So let me ask if you have a morning routine, what your morning routine looks like now compared to when you were on active duty, if there are any differences, anything better, anything worse?
So morning routine now, it kind of varies day to day. There's no like every day is going to be the same way because so with my job now with CSX being a conductor, I'm on call, and they could call me anytime, day or night. I'm on a 2-hour call. So if they call me at 8 o'clock, I report for work at 10, and then I can work up to 12 hours. So I can go 10 to 10 or what have you. On days where I'm not getting called and I'm just on the extra board at some whatever order in the calling, I'll usually get up around. I'll usually get up around 6:30, 7, depending. My dogs are always really quick to let me know that they're ready to go out. Get up immediately, let them out, go do their business. Feed and water them, and then make some coffee. And if I'm not guaranteed to have to work that day, I'm seeing what all I need to do around the house, whether it's mow the lawn or take our recycling to the recycling center because we don't have recycling services that come to the house. So we do our cardboard and our plastic and all that stuff and load it in the back of my truck and take it once a week. Any kind of updates to the house that we've been doing because we actually just finished the room that I'm in. We just finished renovating it about a month ago, my father-in-law and I, and it's been about a year project of updating this room, the hallways, the downstairs bathroom, and my son's room, which is actually next to this room. Updating it, knocking out walls, putting walls back up, priming, sealing, painting, new floors, tearing out the fireplace hearth behind me, which is about to be. So I guess we're not done yet because I still have to replace the hearth. But we got the tile for it finally. It's marble tile finally came in, so that'll be the next step. But so I mean, there's no real long roundabout answer. There's no real true schedule or routine. It's just kind of go with the flow as the day presents, unless I get called or unless I'm first out on the board to be called. And it's like, okay, I know I'm going to get called today at some point, guaranteed. Now I'm going to make sure I've got all my stuff right for work, whether it be my radio, headlamp, spare flashlight, batteries, reflective vest, snacks, all of that good stuff, all of the paperwork booklets that we're required to have on us. My work tablet has to be charged, has to be 100% when I show up for work. Gloves, glasses, the whole shebang. So It's just make sure I got all that set. I'm going to get called at some point, any point today, and I'm going to be on that 2 hour call, and I could go to my train yard here in town, or I could go to Greenwood, or I could go to Greenville, or they might even call me to go down. Unlikely, but they might call me to go down to Columbia, or even potentially like go to Augusta or something like that and bring a train back here or where have you. Like just for prime example, I got called on Thursday last week, this past Thursday, excuse me. I got called at 9 a.m. for an 11 a.m. report to take a 110 car coal train weighing 15,807 tons. It's over 6,000 feet long from Spartanburg to Columbia, South Carolina. And that's, it's about an 8 hour run. And then we got there, tied down the train, and then got in a taxi. And then taxi brought us back up to the yard, got in the truck, and came home. So it varies. It varies day to day. There's no real guaranteed like if um, any day is going to be the same as it was yesterday. I could get called to go on some long run. I can get called to do some local work, and servicing customers in our local area, or I could just be sitting waiting for the phone to ring for the next day, or taking care of stuff here at the house and the kids and all that good stuff. But comparatively speaking, I find it so much more freeing than, oh crap, I have to get up today. I have to get up and go, 5:30 in the morning to get ready for 6:30, or for 6 a.m. Excuse me, 6 a.m. report for a 6:30 formation to go and do PT or, get ready for the field or what have you. And I don't miss having to go on 8 mile runs. I don't miss doing push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups, and all the others, and burpees and everything else under the sun, for an hour and a half, 2 hours each morning, Monday through Friday. And you know, if I'm not getting called to work, I very much enjoy being able to just, look out my back window, be on my back patio, and enjoy a cup of coffee without having to worry about like, oh man, I have an hour to get back, and find a parking space at the motor pool or whatever.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. Is like, what's the what's the big like contrast? And it sounds like there's a huge contrast.
Sorry for the very long-winded answer.
No, that's what I'm here for: is long-winded answers and long-winded questions. That's our motto here. Uh, can you take me back to the time when you first joined? Like, where were you at physically, emotionally, mentally? Your age? I guess we could do the math if we wanted to, but just can you walk me through that's the process of joining the military and what was on your mind at the time when you did?
Yeah, absolutely. So I joined when I was 19 years old back in '06. Um, let's see here. At the time that I went to my local recruiter's office, I was a high school dropout. I hadn't yet completed my GED, and I knew that I was working a lot. I was working very regularly, very steadily. I've had a job ever since I was 15 years old. My first job being at McDonald's, then at Kroger's grocery store. For those who don't know what a Kroger's is, think Food Lion or Fred Meyer or something to that effect. Um, and then I worked at a country club, and then I worked at an auto glass factory. And I was just like, I'm just going to keep doing these same kind of dead end, going nowhere, never going to really do anything with my life kind of stuff. Yeah, I can make decent money at this factory. I can make okay-ish money at this country club, but the people there suck because they're all snotty and entitled and that kind of stuff. And I don't mean to say that of everybody, but that at that particular one, they were. And that's why I quit, because I got into it with a customer. But anyway, um, so at the time, I went to my recruiter's office, and I actually had a civilian recruiter, which I didn't even know was a thing. I had no idea existed. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not in the military anymore. I'm DA civilian, but I'm still, I was E7 when I got out." And he was able to be that guy to tell me, is like, "Look, you have this illusion, you have this idea of what the military is without ever stepping foot into it. And I can tell you, after 20, I think he said like 23, 24 years in the Army, that whatever you're thinking is going to be completely wrong. And I can tell you this honestly because I'm not worried about making some quota or getting chewed out by the sergeant major over there. I was like, well, shit. At least he's honest. Um, he's like, but it can be something a whole lot more than what you have your sights set on. It's going to be a lot harder than you think it's going to be to get there. And if you really want to do this, by all means, we can do this. But obviously, first step is going to have to be completing your GED. So he actually, on the day, because with Kentucky, they wouldn't let you at the time. I don't know if they still do it now. They wouldn't let you just take your GED test. They made you do classes for 2 months prior to, in order for them to determine that you were ready to take your GED. I'm like, oh, 19, almost 20 years old. Can I just take it? No. So he took me there to the classes. They were in Newport, Kentucky. Newport, Kentucky, which is right across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. He took me there every single day that I had classes, and he brought me back home every single day that I had classes from classes. And then he took me to the testing facility for my GED, which was in an entirely different county, at the county library for Gallatin County, Kentucky. And then brought me back from that. And then when they finally posted my scores, like he had to have the transcripts and all that stuff, they sent me the email saying, "Hey, you passed your GED, congratulations," but he didn't have the paperwork. So he drove from Florence, Kentucky, where the office was at, down to Lexington to the education office to get my paperwork and then come back up with it to finish processing me because I said I wanted to go. I was like, come on, can we please just do this? I want to go already. And so, I mean, like, he went above and beyond. I mean, I know it's that thing. It's like, well, of course they're going to get you in your number, your person. But, like, other prospects all over, he didn't have to jump through all those hoops for these guys. But I was adamant about going. I was adamant about joining. I would have joined way sooner, probably, if it weren't for the GED aspect of it. I kind of always knew growing up I was going to join the military. Come from a military family, father, uncles, both grandfathers, great grandfathers, and on and on and on and on and on. So I kind of always figured that's where I was going to go. And there was a time where I kind of like, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that shit. I want to do something else. I can, I can go be this, I can go be that. And then I was like, oh, probably not, because I'm a hands-on learner and I don't pay attention in classroom and settings and environments for shit. So, and obviously look where I'm at now. I'm a high school dropout because I hated school and couldn't stand to hear people just drone on and talk at me for 8 hours a day. So, physically, I was 6'1", about 145 pounds, sticking bones. And I played sports all growing up. Nothing. I didn't play football or nothing like that. I played baseball, played soccer, so I was athletic. I could run, I could pull my own weight, but I still wasn't ready for the rigors of what the Army was going to bring, even that no matter how much I thought I was. But I knew when I joined, I was physically ready enough to at least have a baseline to build from. You know what I mean? And that I wanted to do when I first started doing lists and I went through the MEPS and all that. Or the first time I went to MEPS, I wanted to join as an MP because that deluded kid of thinking, well, I can do a couple years as an MP, get out, and then go to police academy, and then it'll be like doors wide open because police force to police force, not knowing that it has nothing in common with modern policing and city environments and not military. Downside is the only ticket I've ever had in my entire life was within a year of joining the military. Only ticket I've ever had in my entire life was when I was 18. I had a hole in my catalytic converter on my 1988 POS. And I got a noise obstruction ticket for my car on the interstate of all places. how that works, I don't know. It was broad daylight on the interstate. Wasn't at night. Wasn't in a residential neighborhood, but whatever. And so I couldn't join to be an MP. So the guy at MEPS, he's like, well, I've got a really cool video to show you if you'd like to check it out, and maybe obviously he was a 13 bang bang himself, had to have been, and I was like, yeah, sure, and puts the video on, and it's POD playing in the background, just howitzers firing and throwing howitzers out of the back of helicopters and paratroopers and air assault missions, and I was just like, yo, I want to do that. That's so cool. I was like, and so I told him that, got it all going. And he's just like, all right, so this will be in your contract. I said, wait, I want airborne in my contract. I was like, I didn't know jack about it. It just looked cool when I was, back in those days, 18, 19, 20 years old. I wanted to do anything that would throw my hair back. And well, as you can tell, it's been thrown back. It's been thrown back. So uh, he's like, you want airborne? I was like, I want it in my contract if that can be done. I was told that certain things can be added. He's like, yeah, it can be. You sure you want it? I was like, I absolutely want it. If it's not in my contract, I'm going to walk out of the building right now. He's like, all right. It has me review it and read through it and all that stuff, and then everything else that happens at MEPS, all the duck walks and things like that, fun times. But yeah, I was amped. I was ready to go. Small town Kentucky, far from the first and only person in my town to go and join. Um, my sister actually dated a dude. She's 2 years older than I am. She dated a dude for a little while. Um, can't remember his name. I feel bad for this, but I can't remember his name. But he was a Marine, and he joined right after high school, and he to went over to Iraq, and he got his left leg blown off below the knee. Um, and I was just like, oh crap. So I mean, I knew there were dangers. I knew there was risks. People that I personally knew that were going and had been over and gotten hurt. But I was just like, yeah, that young, idealistic, patriotic, like gung ho mindset of like, got to do it, got to go, got to go, got to go. And I'm not going to be some desk flying admin, paper pusher, whatever. Like if I'm going, I'm young, I'm physically able, and to my mind, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm an adrenaline junkie and I love it. What do I got to do to get to that point where I can, be that guy that's on the ground, doing whatever it is that's needed to be done. So that was basically my general mindset. It's like, can I not not eager to go because of like bloodthirsty or depraved or anything like that. Eager to go because I had nothing, and I do mean nothing, there for me in Kentucky besides my family, who I still am in great contact with, and I love them all, and they're awesome and they're super supportive. But I had nothing going for me in that area that was going to benefit me or gave me a reason to not go. Like, okay, well, the military is my next best option.
I think it's more, I mean, I feel like it. I don't have any scientific evidence to back this up, but I feel like more the Midwest, like Kentucky. I grew up in Illinois and Missouri, around St. Louis. Um, but like Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio.
It's like the perfect triangle. That area, that whole area of all of those states. It's like a perfect intersection of like the most people to join the military.
That's the way I feel about it too. It's just there's a lot more hometown, like small America. You go through some of the places in any of those states, and you'll see cities and towns where you drive through, and you're like, this town has been forgotten in the past. Like it's literally Main Street, USA, downtown. They've got like one barber shop, one little small grocery store. Like it's crazy when you see it.
It's and where it's not even those particular towns. If you're not from that particular town itself, you're from two or three towns over where it's a bigger town, and and it's not dead and it's not gone, but you're either going to be doing, it's like you get good at sports to get out, or you get good at academics to get out. Otherwise, you're going to be working on the farm, or you're going to be working over at the plant, or working over at the mill, or working over here, and you're trapped there and you're never, ever, 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 ever going to leave. You're never going to do anything else. Now, not trying to disparage on those type of people that are stay there, but for some people, that's just not enough. And I'm one of those people where that wouldn't have been enough for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting paradox of choice for sure. I have a very similar story. Growing up in around St. Louis and in and around that area, and it came to that spearhead in my life where I was like, this is a path to nowhere, and I need to get on a path to somewhere, and that was kind of my because 2 years prior to that, like when I was still in high school, you couldn't tell me I was going to join the military and do service and spend, a whole career in the military. Like there was no way you were going to tell me anything like that. Like that was totally out of the question.
Not even in your purview in the slightest. Yeah. And then it ends up being the thing that you do, and you're like, holy crap, this is my calling, or whatever the situation may be, and you stick with it for, like you said, 25, right? That's no small thing. 26 years old, 26 years of your life, that's a lot. That is nothing short of like real commitment. So that's awesome.
I mean, the same. You did 16, and I think we're going to go ahead and get into that a little bit. But I want to ask you, uh, when you got to that point where you were ready to get out, what were the decisions? What was kind of like the self-talk that was going on in your mind when you did that?
I did not want to get out. I got medically retired. Downside of being a paratrooper, downside of being combat arms, and go 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 and 3 deployments and all that stuff. I've dislocated my right shoulder about 28 times while I was in, and I tore my labrum, and I tore my long bicep tendon numerous times. And then in 2019, I was actually doing. I was stationed in Grafenwehr, Germany, and we were doing combatives PT that morning, and myself and it was like circle up, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Ones will rotate, twos will stay stagnant. After a minute, you'll go and move, and twos will move to the next, or ones will rotate to the next person, and so on and so on and so on. And so at the time, I was a howitzer section chief on a M119 Alpha 3 howitzer, and it was my section, me and my 6 guys, fifth section, sixth section, the FDC, smoke, well, it's platoon sergeant, gunny, assistant platoon sergeant, and our PL. And so there's crap load of us. And so the first person I was rolling with that morning for combatives was actually my ammunition team chief, Sergeant Anglin. Great dude. Wish I had 30 of them. He and I were rolling first, no big deal. Everything was cool. Minute goes by, and then I was stagnant, and then rotated over, and my PL and I are rolling. And he's a bigger dude than I am, like noticeably bigger dude, and a little bit taller, a little bit beefier. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to overpower this dude. The only chance I have to not get put in some submission is to try to just immediately go into my guard, and then try to work from there. But so I went into my guard, and I'm on my back, and my arms are up like this to try to keep him from getting a collar choke. Well, he's a bigger guy and he's stronger, so he kind of like maneuvers his arm over this way on the either side of both of my arms, and then he sweeps my arms over. So left arm goes out like this, right arm comes like this, and then his body weight comes down on it, and then pops it out of socket right there. I'm like, no, hey sir, we're done, it's out. He's like, what's out? Like my shoulder. He's like, oh shit, oh my god, are you okay? It's like, it's happened before. It just fucking hurts. So, after 28 times, or 27 at that point, after 27 times of it popping out, I just, kind of grip and twist and, throw it back up in there. I'm like, I need to sit out. I'm done. He's like, no worries, you're good. Now, the kicker for that situation was normally after popping my shoulder out and then putting it back in, give it 45 minutes to an hour, and it's a little sore, but, I got range of motion back and everything was fine. Hour, 2, 3 hours goes by, and I'm just like, I still can't raise my arm. something ain't right. And and this doesn't just like, it's not just like it's their sore. It's like, this hurts really bad. So I got taken to the clinic on post, and they couldn't see anything. But my PA knew me really well, and he's like, well, Alborg ain't coming in here just for, a little gripe or, bitch, piss and moan kind of thing. Like, he's coming in here because there's an issue. So he actually put in a request to have me get an MRI at the German hospital in Weiden. And so I went down there to the radiology department a day or two later when the TRICARE stuff all processed, and got my MRI done. They're like, you tore your labrum. And so they scheduled me for a endoscopic, minimally invasive orthopedic surgery on my shoulder to repair the labrum and clear out scar tissue and debris of cartilage that had flecked off and stuff like that. And then the recovery time and everything was going good. But during the recovery and the physical therapy, I continued to tear my bicep tendon again, and kept tearing it more and more and more. And so I got sent in for another MRI once I was at physical therapy one day, and I was doing the little itty bitty medicine balls. They're like 5 pounds, and they had my arm like this, and a trampoline on an angled trampoline, and it's throw the ball at the thing and then catch it and flex back, to try to get that going, and do that once or twice, and I'm just like, nope, like it was done. Went and got another MRI, and they're like, you need to have your bicep tendon removed. So the long bicep tendon runs from about here down to your forearm, and they cut out from here to here and then anchored it. And then after those two surgeries, I got sent for evaluation. Um, was it medical retention point evaluation in Landstuhl, the Ramstein area, the big, huge Air Force hospital. And they're like, based on all of this and this, that, and the other, and so on and so on and so on, it's like, we're recommending that you become medical, that you go through a med process. I'm just like legit, no joke. So I'm in that appointment, and the doctor tells me everything he's telling me. He's like, I'm just like, I don't know if I can do this. It's like, I've done 16 years, he's like, you've done enough. And I'm just like, oh, stop saying that. Don't do that. Stop. Something's going on here. And he's like, it's okay to be emotional. Like, he's like, but you need to understand that with your age, with your injuries you've had, and the MOS you're in, and this, that, and the other, all of these things that apply, like your chances of continuing to serve in the military, like he's like, it's been so many months since you've had your last surgery. And at that point, I was on permanent profile, or not permanent, but I was on profile for like almost 2 consecutive years. He's like, could you even do 25 push-ups right now? I'm like, I couldn't do 5. He's like, there's my point. I was just like, uh. And so like we got done with all the talks and whatnot, and he got me kind of sort of like understanding what his perspective and his point of view of it was, and I was like, okay, all right, fine, if that's where we're going to go. And he's like, there's no guarantee that they're going to separate you from a MEB, but we have to do the MEB to determine where that's going to go. And so I walked out of the hospital, and the entire time, so I got my hat on. I was in civvies at the time because it's 4-hour drive from Grafenberg, Germany to Landstuhl. And I'm walking out of the hospital, and I'm just, mask on because it was still COVID stuffs, and I'm just hands in my hoodie, and I'm just following the green line out the hospital, because I couldn't. If I looked anybody in the eye, like it would have been over for me. And so I get out of the hospital, I get to the parking area where my rental car was at, and I call up my wife, who at the time was still over here in the States. And so I call her up, and I fucking break down, dude. Like, I broke the absolute hell down. Like, my career's over. I'm done. and I'm bawling my eyes out, and just I probably chain smoked, I don't know, 5 cigarettes before I got in the car and finally drove back. And it's just devastated. Like I didn't want, and I remember specifically when I got back to base that day and I saw my sergeant major. My sergeant major and I had a wonderful relationship. To this day, still have a wonderful relationship with us, Sergeant Major Smith. And that's not an alias; that is his actual name, Smith. um, I saw him. And I told him, he's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I didn't do 16 years to not do 20. Like I had my plan. I had everything I was going to do. Like this can't be it." He's like, "But it is. How's it? How do you feel about that?" I'm like, "What do I do? What am I going to do?" I was ready for 4 more years. I was ready to go back stateside at the end of this year on my PCS and go be a freaking AIT instructor. Go teach, dumbasses how to artillery. It's like, what do I do? What am I going to do? Like, this is not how it's supposed to go. He's like, can I give you a piece of advice? He's like, yes, please, absolutely, Sergeant Major. What? It's like, look at it like this. You don't have to, but he's like, most people, when they look at their time in the military, they look at it as a chapter in a book, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, don't look at it as a chapter in a book. Your time in the military, your time in the Army is a book unto itself. Now that book is done. Close that book, put it away. Don't start a new chapter. Start a whole new fucking book. And fill it with all the things that you're going to do and you're going to accomplish, and all the availability that you have to be with your kids and your wife, and this, that, and the other. And only go back to the book that is your military service once in a while to fondly reminisce, but don't live in that book. Don't dwell in that book. He's like, the people who get out of the military and succeed in life are the ones who can put that book down and only pick it up once in a while to open it up and reminisce and then put it back down. If you stay stuck in that book, I promise you will fail. He's like, this is the end of this story, and that's okay. Start a new story. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm gonna make this story my bitch. It's like, like that newfound resolve of like, man, this guy is so fucking wise. But I was, so again, roundabout way of getting to it all. Adamantly, adamantly not ready, not wanting to, scared as shit about what life was going to be, going from 16 years of artillery, which has next to no civilian practical applications, you know, and then, being 35, 36 years old at the time, um, ending one career, got to start another. What's my disability rating going to be? Is that going to preclude me from getting certain types of jobs? And what am I going to do for a job in the first place? I have no idea. I was scared shitless, man. I was not ready for it, and I was not happy about the situation that I was forced into. I don't get me wrong. I'm happy to be home. I was happy about the prospect of being able to be home and be with my family and see my friends more often and all that stuff. That part of it, aces. It's like, okay, cool. Um, but I was so devastated at first with the prospect of, I don't know shit about how to civilian anymore, and I have no real skills beyond pull string go boom. you know what the hell am I going to do? But I came to terms with it, and I kind of steeled my resolve a little bit to, like, well, you know what, you don't know, but that's never stopped you from figuring shit out. Like, I didn't know how to artillery at one point, but somebody helped me figure it out. I didn't know how to airborne at one point, but somebody helped me figure it out. And I didn't know how to father at one point, but I figured it out. And on and on and on and on and on. And it's just applying yourself to that goal of provide and ensure that my family is taken care of. That's always been, since My son was born when I was 23 years old. I got married to my first wife at 21. Um, and from that point on, it was always family is paramount. I have to take care of mine. Like, I'm a husband. Oh, my son is born. I'm a father. Like, my life is now not not inconsequence, or or inconsequential, should I say, but like, my life is for my purpose in life is to provide him with a good life. You know what I mean? I have all the stuff that I never had when I was a kid, the opportunities that I never had, and like, show him a better way than what I had and whatnot. And so I busted my ass, and I always have, always will, to make sure that my family is taken care of. So I just steeled my resolve to stop bitching, stop worrying, stop wondering, and once you get back in America, hit the ground fucking running with building your resume. And I did. My sister-in-law helped me build my resume, and it was nice because she's a professional who does that kind of stuff. And start sending out your resume and start applying for jobs. And then it just so happens that my two of my uncles, they're twins, up in Cincinnati, work for CSX, and I have so for about 16 years now. One of them is a freight conductor as well, and the other one is a mechanic. And they're like, "Have you considered joining the railroad?" I'm just like, "I actually hadn't," and I applied for it. And after a month and a half of interviews and drug testing and this, that, and the other, and interviews and interviews and interviews and paperwork out the yang and my CPAP stuff, they gave me the job. They offered me the job. And I went to Atlanta. I did the training. I came back and did on the job training. And now next month, no, sorry, at the end of this month, I'm going back to Atlanta to go training to be an engineer to actually drive the train. And I'm just like, I've been doing this job for over a year, and none of this would be happening if I didn't get out of my own head, if I didn't get out of my own way, and just shut up and do it. You know what I mean? Like that fear, that anxiety that I had of what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Well, shut up and do it. And that was my whole mindset for those months and months and months leading up of that uncertainty, the early earlier than planned by a lot, end to this story and starting of a new one and that kind of stuff. And I was just, it took me a minute to really stop. And fortunately, I stopped bitching and worrying about it before I got back. And as soon as I got back to the States, I had 60 days of terminal leave and 30 days of permissive TDY. I had 90 days of boots on the ground, for lack of a better term, before I was even out of the Army, that I did all of my stuffs. And I got hired on by CSX before I was even completely out of the Army. And that's all accredited to having the right people in my life being like, you can't sit there and just stay stagnant waiting to see what comes. You got to go and get it. You can't worry about the what ifs and the hows and the whys and the whens and the wheres. Go and fucking get it. And that, and fortunately, hearing them and believing them far enough in advance where I was like, okay, this is what I got to do. I've got enough buddies who are out and who have been out long enough to tell me, you know, don't hesitate, don't wait, don't sit around, don't wonder, fucking do. If you do any of that other stuff, you are going to regret it monumentally. You hit the ground running and you do it, you might luck out into something, you never know. Or at the very least, find something temporary until that good thing comes along. Then, if you're waiting at some job that pays decently for the job that pays great and has benefits and all the other stuff, that's one thing. But if you're just sitting around twiddling your thumbs, wonder if I'm going to get an email today about somebody offering me a job. Not if you don't get the fuck out there and look.
I appreciate you sharing that story with me. It's a really um, close held thing, and I really, really appreciate you telling me all of that. I wanted to ask if there was any practical tools or tricks that you might have gathered over that few months of waiting, that kind of holding pattern that maybe you leveraged or leaned on, whether it was like a book or like a favorite album, or if there was any kind of like thing that you realized in that time frame and that holding pattern that kind of carried you through. I know you said your friends and your family were really pivotal in that experience, but was there anything else? Because you don't talk to them 24 hours a day, right? You still have dwell time and downtime and quiet time. How did you get through that?
I didn't really read any kind of like self empowerment or resiliency kind of books or anything like that. I mean, I knew all of that stuff because I've done the master resiliency trainer, that kind of stuff, and I knew avoiding icebergs. We all know. um, no, really, it was taking what I get from the people who are giving me like real solid advice and really, really, really committed to um, my success, whether it be family, close friends, coworkers, seniors, peer subordinates, all up and down. I'd taken, a little bit from each of them, like, hey, you got, the pep talks, you got this, you can do this. Um, Really, honestly, a lot of it is in part, I'm extremely stubborn. Um, and so like I refuse to be in my mind, I refuse to be a burden on somebody else. Um, I know I know that people wouldn't, would say like, helping out is not you being a burden, but it all up here. But I did, um, I did go to therapy a couple of times, and therapists kind of helped put it in perspective. Kind of echoed what was already being told to me by the people in my life that were close. Just in a more, you know, educated manner in some regards. um, and it was a realization that, and it took my wife pointed out to me too. Here's the kicker: that I was letting when I was not quite hit that resolve yet, right? Or when I was still far away from it, even still that holding pattern, like you were saying. I got really low for a little while there, and my drinking and all of that stuff increased. And the type of music I was listening to, because I was down, I was depressed, I was angry, and it was like not that I have a problem with it, but too much of it of the same that same baseline of music, that heavy metal and that kind of stuff can really, really, really affect you if that's all you're listening to. And I was listening to nothing but like just metal and like just that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, I still love it, but you got to mix it up. And it was affecting my mood, and the drinking was affecting my mood. And it was I would just sit there and and say this is my beer for the day, or one of, and it's I was in Germany, so it's German beer, so it's about this size actually, and higher alcohol content, and I just just okay, pop open another one, finish that one, and it'd be a Friday night, and I'm putting away 5, 6, 7, 8 beers, and it's like, okay, well, got nothing else going on, I don't have anywhere to go. I'll go ahead and make me a couple of mixed drinks. I got my bourbon. And it I wish to God I could say that I came to the discovery on my own. I really do. I wish to God I could say that I was somehow magically pulled myself up by my bootstraps. But it took my wife kicking me in the ass, metaphorically, to for me to get out of my own head. Like because you hear from everybody saying this, that, and the third, and you want to listen to it, but part of you doesn't. I was feeling sorry for myself, and I was sad, and I was unsure and scared, and all of those things. And it took for my wife to finally knock me over the head, kick me in the ass again, metaphorically. for me to realize that, you know, I had all the tools and resources I needed at my disposal already. You know, you're a smart guy, you know, you're motivated, you're all about, you know, making sure that, you know, we're good, which, you know, we, you know, and, you know, what we appreciate, and this, that, and the, all, you know, all the things that she would say. I don't want to go too much into all of that. But it really, really kind of catalyzed right there. I was just like, ooh, like I'm sitting here and I'm drinking my emotions. I'm, you know, listening to my, you know, just, you know, with these, or, you know, with something else in my ear, or, you know, whatever. I'm just feeding back into my own emotion. You know, like I'm sad, I'm angry, and all I'm listening to is sad and angry, and it's just fueling what's already there. And she pointed all of that shit out. She's like, and she said that shit verbatim, like, all you're doing is feeding your anxiety, you're feeding your anger, you're feeding your sadness, and you're contributing nothing to a good future getting out. If you continue to be like this, like, you've got shit to do, go fucking do it. You know, I'm just like, damn. Like, she'd never spoken to me like that before. Never in a million years had she spoken, and not because of, like, you know, we just, you know, we, you know, we don't have a relationship where we can be open with each other, but, like, you know, she made me, like, you know, at that moment, just for that briefest of moments before that realization and that, you know, that resolve finally kicked in, I felt like a piece of shit. I was just like, oh my God, I've got to, you know, I, like, you know, like she said, I've got everything I need, you know, all the people around me and the resources. All I got to do is reach out and ask for, you know, for a reference, for, you know, a letter of recommendation, for this, for that, for the third. And I'm not, and I'm setting myself up for failure. And so I was like, okay, it's time to make a change. It's time to take this, you know, take this for what it is. A situation I didn't ask for, a situation I didn't want, but a situation that I have nonetheless. Now I got to fucking do something about it. And that was just it. It was just sitting and waiting and stewing until my wife finally said, "All right, enough's enough, dude." And she literally, you know, peeled back the blinders that I'd forced on, and, you know, and, you know, just, you know, refusing to see it for what it was and what I could do with it. And yeah, and so it changed my perspective overnight. And then I was like, okay, now it's time to start using these tools that I got, whether it be, you know, my any kind of like mental or emotional resiliency kind of stuff that I've learned over the years, or peers or subordinates or leaders, or connections I've made over the years, you know, getting all this stuff figured out. I mean, and that's in of itself right there, like family connections that, you know, I didn't even ever, I'd never even considered. And even when I got back here to the States, I still hadn't considered. I was putting in applications here, there, and everywhere else to all of these industries and plants that are local to me here. And I sent my resume to TSA, for Greenville Airport and for Charlotte. And and then, you know, I was sitting there, just like, you know, just playing the waiting game. What happens? And then my uncle reached out to me. He's like, "Hey man, how you doing? Yada yada yada. Question: You ever considered, you know, CSX?" I'm just like, resource right there. I mean, I've heard all about they tell us this much when we're going through, you know, our SFL tab about, you know, like, you know, programs that most directly can benefit military, you know, service members leaving the military, about railroad retirement, you know, the opportunities that are in the railroad and the money you can make. I'm just like, they told me as much. I know my uncles work for the company. I've known this for, you know, over a decade. How in the hell, dude? Like, how did I not go to him and say, "Hey, Donnie, could you give me your employee ID number to put down as a reference for this application I'm about to do online?" He told me, he's like, "Yeah, you apply online. Here's a link. Here's this, that, and the other. Here's my name, my full name, employee ID number, where I work out of, because they'll need all of that information." He gave it all to me without even asking. I can't tell you how obvious I'm and on the nose that one should have been, but I was just too in my own fucking head. And if I had just shut up and put, and it just opened my eyes and just, really looked at it for what it was and what it could have been, I would have discovered that well before that, and I would have had nothing to be scared of. I would have had nothing to worry about. But I just got bogged down by my own bullshit, and I know that sounds sounds kind of self-deprecating, but it was. It really, really was.
Not to dive down the MRT rabbit hole because I can talk that business all day long. But yeah, what I think what your wife essentially did was put it in perspective. Like she gave you that jolt to jolt you out of your pattern.
Exactly what it was. 110%.
And so, I mean, what you're talking about is the kind of, I wouldn't say a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it was more like a closed feedback loop. Like when you're around, what is it, the five, um, you're the sum of the five people you spend the most time with, where, if you're just talking about whatever, you start to believe your own bullshit.
You buy into the hype.
Exactly. In that situation, if there was any, what was some of the worst advice you got in that few months period?
I'm trying to think. Some of the worst advice. There's not a whole lot of bad advice I got at that time. There's advice that I don't want to say ignored, but kind of like, okay, well, I'll at the very least humor you and give you the respect of you trying to help me, and I'll look into it, see what it is at face value, and then be like, hey, look, I appreciate it, but that's not for me, kind of thing. Um, it was more. It was more of like kind of really honestly career paths of people being like, oh, you can do this and that and the other. I was like, no, I can't. I can't. I'm a 36-year-old good enough diploma holding recipient with no college, and they're like and like okay, I'll rephrase. Hold on, no. So the worst advice I got, and this is worst advice just because it was advice because it pertains to me, not for everybody. I want to say that at the outset. Go to college, go to school, this, that, and the other. I'm not that guy. I I hated school when I was in high school. I don't feel like I benefited much from it at all, besides social skills and this, that, and the other. I learned so much more from the school of hard knocks and the school of the real world than I did from a classroom environment. To each their own. I'm not saying it's bad for everybody. It was bad for me. And me going and trying to go and get some degree where so many jobs are available that you don't need a degree in, and honest, and you look at it from the lens of, okay, well, you got a degree but you got no experience, or you got experience but got no degree, one or the other, that kind of thing. It's like I'm not a in school classroom environment learner. I'm a 36-year-old dude with, three children of the teen and preteen persuasions, and a wife, and a house, and a car, and, all the responsibilities that, somebody who should be in the midst of their career or close to the end of their career has, not somebody just starting over. I'm not trying to go and do some online or in class, in school thing. I need to find something that's going to provide right away. So for me, again, personal perspective, the worst advice was go to school, go to college. You got the GI Bill at your disposal. That's not for me, dude. Like, that's not going to work. It works for other people. Great, awesome, great for them. I'm happy for them. I will never tell anybody not to try that route if it's right for them. But for me, it's not going to work. Please, I need to find something real. I need to find something tangible right now.
I mean, I fall in a similar category. GED, never got a college degree, but what I do want to point out is the fact that you had this self-awareness to understand that you're a certain type of learner. I think knowing that is more valuable than a degree in and of itself.
Without question, 110% all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. I am a see it done, learn how to do it, and learn by doing learner. Like, if I watch somebody doing it, I can pick up on it, and then once I've done it and got that muscle memory a couple times, it's locked in. I'm not going to sit there and learn anything with death by PowerPoint or being talked and droned at by somebody for, again, the 4, 5, 6, however many hours a day. I'm going to sit there and, and just wish I was anywhere else but right there.
Can I ask you something along those same lines? And I mean, it's my podcast, so I can do whatever I want. But um, I want to ask you, like, so when you realize that you're not that you're more of a visual learner, meaning you're hands-on, you need to see it and then repeat it. Um, how much stuff do you learn from, say, a YouTube? Does that really bring you a lot of value?
So the thing with the YouTube is, and this is that weird kind of intersection of watching it and it being done on a YouTube video or watching somebody in person doing it. If I'm watching somebody take apart a transmission, not that I'm very mechanically inclined, but if I'm watching somebody in person and I can see every single angle, I can move around and I can get into that good spot, or I can say, "Hey, why do you got to do it in this order?" Or like the rhyme and reason for it, as opposed to a YouTube channel where it's, oh, then you do this and this and this and this, and it already moves on. It's like, shit, I got to rewind.
It's more of the fact that it's not as interactive as being in person.
Yeah, for my money, from my perspective, yeah.
No, that's perfect because I mean I delve in the IT world either way, so um, that's an interesting thing. And like I said, the the, the self awareness to understand how you actually learn, like it's one of those things that was kind of like an aha moment for me when I actually heard this kind of thing being phrased and put together in a sentence, and I thought really hard about it, and I was like, huh, because again, school is school. It's a mandatory thing. We all have to do it at some point, but a lot of us do it for the wrong reasons. And a lot of us don't understand that maybe that's not the way we learn, or we don't figure out a way to manipulate the studies in a way that we can actually succeed. Like if we want to be a doctor, like you have to go to college to be a doctor, right? You have to go to college to be a lawyer. If you don't understand how you actually learn, then you can't maximize that time that you have to do in order to reach your goal, right? So
That's one of the reasons why I've always been a bigger proponent of trade and technical schools. I know so many people that have gone to trade school and technical school as opposed to going to a standard institutionalized university or whatever, and that the trade school curriculum versus a technical versus a university curriculum. Trade school, you're only learning what you need to learn as it pertains to your job. University, you got to learn what you need to learn for this and your credit hours, but you also got to take all these other classes that have no merit to you doing this job. But it's credit hours to say that you did this much schooling in general. It's like that to me is asinine. I've never understood that. I think it's a very, 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 um, it's a very faulty way of doing things, and it takes away from the real goal, in my mind, of, I'm trying to be insert job title here, but you're telling me I have to take this art elective or I have to take this or whatever. What does this pertain to me learning this thing? Well, nothing, but it means you did so many hours of school. Well, then make this course that many hours and then cram as much knowledge into this one course for this one job, for this one diploma that you possibly can in there to make it be this much, and forget about all this other nonsense. My perspective, for what it's worth. Um, and so that's why, like, trade schools and technical schools, Job Corps. I will tout Job Corps even though I've never been myself till the end of time. People who go to Job Corps, their only focus is what their education is going towards, and they give you every single resource imaginable to be successful in that once you leave their program. And as long as you stick with the program to its completion and you actually apply yourself, you can be a very, 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 very successful person in your particular field. Welding, HVAC, this, that, and the third, whatever. And so if I hadn't joined the military, that probably would have been where I went after that.
Yeah, let me talk about that a little bit with you and dig into your transition process, like the tap SFL tap, any of the seminars you had to attend, and anything that you pulled away from there. Like, what was that experience like for you? Was it a bunch of droning on, sitting in the classroom listening to lectures, or did you take maybe some extra electives that were offered? How was that experience?
So I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything additional that they didn't tell me was already that was mandatory from my program, from my particular program. Um, I didn't give them any credence when it came to any stuffs about college or this that, and the other. I was strictly focused on okay, building up a resume, making myself making myself be a quality hire for prospective, employers, or acquisition specialists, or whatever the term may be for any particular area. Right? That was my sole focus, and I did all of those, like that, even the ones that I wasn't required to take. If it was like, hey, here's a resume building class, yep, sign me up. Hey, here's a class on how to give a proper interview and this, that, and the other, and a workshop too. Like I was in a class with like 25 other people. It was over Zoom and all that stuff because of COVID and all that stuff at the time, and being in Germany. 25 other service members that were getting out for all the various reasons, and we had to do mock interviews with one another, where at one moment I was the person who was doing the hiring, and then I was conducting this interview with my prospective possible employee, and then vice versa with somebody else, and this, that, and the other, and building up our own on the fly resume bullets to send in. Like, okay, well, we'll work on this tonight, and then tomorrow morning first thing we'll present our resumes, and and this, that, and the other, and we'll kind of go over, not to like bash or anything like that, but just kind of fine tune what you should really be going into a resume. It's like, okay, well, you put this here, but this isn't really something that's that crazy applicable to this. So honestly, if you want to put it in there, it could be better served in this portion of the resume, or you can just do away with it altogether. And like stuff I didn't know, and so I ate those courses up. Um, and they were monumentally beneficial. And then, I plugged that into when I got out and I got back here to the States, and I was going over all of those little bullet points with my sister-in-law, who is like a professional resume builder. Like in addition to her other hat she wears, like she's really good at doing online banking, and security stuff like that. Um, but she helped me build up my resume. Good Lord, I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that my 16 years in the military, and combat experience and leading soldiers and this, that, and the third would really translate well into civilian talk. Into civilian, not only civilian talk, but civilian job market talk. I'm like, whoa. And she made like with everything that I gave her, and then taking this out here and putting this in there and this, that, and the third, my resume looked immaculate. It was like, oh my God, I opened it up and it's just glowing like that aura. It's like, wow. And then, I sent that, and I as soon as I got that back and fine tuned, it was fine tuned and it looked great and it was professional and it had bullet points for days. Shotgun blasted that out into the ether, and so and that was by benefit of those courses giving me that that baseline, that not even really, what, honestly, it's not even really a baseline, because I could say, well, yeah, I could, they could, I could build a resume and it could be moderately passable without doing this stuff, without having these classes. And I could sit there and I could be in an interview with company X to try to get this position, but I've not had to interview for anything like this in ever. I've had to sit in front of people and be talked at for promotion, or talk to them and, give good answers and present myself well for promotions, going to E5, E6 boards. And that's all well and good, but this isn't being grilled by your sergeant major and first sergeants. This is, what can you offer me? Why should I hire you? So it's different, but it's the same. And that's those tools that they kind of help you dial it in and just help you, help you tweak it ever so fine tuning it to get it to being okay. Well, this is your military avenue of approach, and it parallels. It's not a completely different road. It parallels how to do it this way, but it's just enough of a difference to where it's professional, and it's saying those certain buzzwords, and presenting yourself well, and dressing for the job you want, and it's not suit and tie. It's just a button down, or a polo or something like that. Presenting yourself well, and articulating to the best of your ability what you bring to the table and what you're willing to do to help them be profitable, or be expand, or whatever. And so if those courses, just those two or three additional courses I did for interview process and resume building, that were extracurriculars to the SFL TAP program, I absolutely ate those up, and I pretty much kicked everything else to the curb. I was like, if I don't have to do it, I don't care about it, and I'm focused on this because this is my way forward. And that all going back to that kick in the ass I got from my wife saying, get up and make something happen.
I did want to ask you, because it's a very unique situation, or at least in my experience, I haven't run across many people who've done an MEB and not been past the 20-year mark. So I just wanted to ask two things, really. Did you get a chance to do benefits delivery or discharge for your VA stuff, or did that not even matter?
Are you talking about doing having my benefits already kick in for the time when I'm out? Yeah, yeah. So I did all of that stuff prior to getting out, going and seeing all of the doctors, whether it be orthopedic for the shoulder and knees and back, or behavioral health specialists for the anxiety and all of that good stuff. I mean, you name it, I had to go and see them. Tinnitus, sleep apnea, um, all the stuff that gets me now. It was extremely beneficial on one hand, because I know of a lot of dudes who just get out prior to the 20 on on their own accord, and you hear about so many dudes like, well, I don't even have a VA rating. Like, how do you not have a VA rating, dude? Like, well, I only did so many years, and so on and so on and so on, right? And it's just like, dude, you have to. Oh my God, you've got it. You if I don't care if you serve for a year and a half, or you serve for for 30 and a half. Like, go, yeah, you got to get back in touch with the VA and try to make sure that oh man, you get up and you're just like, oh, you jumped out of planes, dude. You jumped out of planes for a living. Freaking go get go and make sure that your injury, your pain is not contributed to your service, and if it is, you at least get compensated for the rest of your life because of that. What degree that is. But so the issue I had with that, though, right, was the language barrier, because I was in Germany, and all the doctors they sent me to for my ratings and for my exams were all German and or Italian doctors. Yeah, so it was weird. It was a really, really weird scenario where I'll give you an example, right? My one of my buddies, who was actually one of my soldiers for a while, um, was getting out around the same time I was, but he was at Fort Bragg. He had 8 years in. I had 16. He had one combat deployment. I had three. He was a paratrooper. I was a paratrooper. We were both field artillery. He was in my section for a while, for crying out loud. And almost getting out for the same thing. Like, he had destroyed, it was his left shoulder, not his right, but he had destroyed his shoulder. And he got out with 100% right off the rip. And I got out with 90. Now, and I've told him this too, because he's like, what the fuck? But I was kind of like, I'm happy for you. I'm super happy that you got yours, because you've done this and you've done that and you've been through this and you've hurt here and this, and on and on and on, and you've gotten all yours, but like at the same time, I'm kind of sitting there like, how the fuck did I not get 100%? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not sitting here like trying to, trying to suckle on the teat that is the VA forever, for lack of a better term. But at the same time, it's like, I feel like everything that I've gone through and everything that I've been through and all the injuries I have sustained over the years and the shit that I'm dealing with now, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or what have you, I feel like it should be at that 100% marker with, no offense to him, because he's not that, it's not, it's going to sound so petty, I know. And it really is. And everything he's done and everything that he's been through, I've been through all of that and more, and again, that sounds petty, I know, but it's at the same time, it's like, I have had twice as many years in and all of these, and everything that he's experienced, I've got that times two, injuries and, and situations and hardships. Now, I'm not going to speak to what it was like for him on deployment, or the trauma he experienced over there, but just the physical aspect of it and what it does to you over time, the way it wears you down. And I was just like, man, something's not right. But that actually recently been rectified. I actually just got 100% last month. So.
And do you think that has something to do with going to the German and Italian doctors versus going to like VA doctors?
I think so. And so I want to preface by saying I don't think it was any kind of, and I've had somebody, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I've had somebody pose this question to me, that the question they posed was, do you think they did it just because you're an American over in Germany and they don't give two shits about you? No, I don't think that's the case. They're doctors, they're professionals. At least I'm going to lead with that thought process of language barrier, or not understanding the extent of what it means to throw yourself out of a plane at 1,200 feet 60 plus times. I'll get and so I just think it was an unfortunate side effect of language barrier and not really grasping the toll it takes. So I'll preface with that one. I don't think it was any way, shape, or form any slight against me because I'm an American or because I'm a service member or any of that. Pardon me, sorry. I don't want anyone to ever go into that situation over in Germany and be jaded by thinking, oh, well, this person's going to screw me over. Because I mean, if it happens, I hope it gets rectified. But I just think it was a miscommunication. It was a misunderstanding, and anybody who's overseas, Germany, Italy, France, Asia, anywhere over there, like, hope if you get sent to a doctor who's of that nation for your exams, for your MEB or whatever, trust that they are doing their absolute best. They've taken that Hippocratic oath to do no harm, and they're trying to do the best that they can. But the language barrier might, in fact, be an issue. And if it is, do what I did. And when you get out, if you only got that 40 or 50 or 60, whatever percentage, and you think it should be more, go to a veterans advocacy group that specialize in increasing VA decision ratings, and they'll help you out like they helped me. not a spokesperson.
So if we could sum up, like, as far, actually, let me ask something else first. If I understand it correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you got medically retired, which means you get a medical retirement paycheck, and then you also have the VA disability, which is now 100%, which is an additional paycheck. I'm just trying to do the math and see, like, at least if you still got compensated the same way you would have if you would have hit 20, or at least something close to that.
So I say retired just because I spent over a decade in the job, and I've left this life and I'm now in this one. It was actually just medical separation, because the Army rating I got was only for the thing that eliminated me from service, which was my shoulder. And they rated me, the Army, at 20% from my shoulder. I have to have 30% or more from the Army to consider it a retirement. But so I got medically separated, and I get my disability checks each month, and I got a one-time severance when I got out.
Yeah, and I want to understand it because I really don't fully understand it. But what you're saying is at 30%, that's when you can potentially be medically retired.
Anybody who's going through a med process, they're going to get two different ratings. They're going to get the Army or Marines, Air Force, Navy, what have you, and they're going to get the VA. Their VA can be whatever number, but the retirement basis will be from the branch of service. So I got the 20 from the Army and I got 90 from the VA because the VA looked at everything, knee, shoulder, back, sleep apnea, tinnitus, PTSD, anxiety disorder, so on and so on and so on.
Did you happen to do anything with the new retirement system, the blended retirement system at all, or you stayed on traditional?
Before I was in, I stayed on the traditional. Or before I got out, excuse me, I stayed on the traditional. I didn't. I didn't elect for the blended one. In retrospect, that might have been a bad decision, but it probably wouldn't have helped me one way or another anyway, with my med being what it was, because I'm not entitled to a retirement. Not going to get that pension, but had I stayed in, well, no shit, I was past the window for electing it. Yeah, I was past the window for electing the blended retirement program when by the time I got out anyway. So I would have been the traditional, the post 9/11 GI, everything, GI Bill and all that applies and everything. Um, I did do one thing that was smart before I got out. Before I didn't have the availability to do so, I transferred all of my GI benefits to my kids 2 years before I got out. So I knew and not because I knew that was coming up, through the woodworks or whatever, that I was going to get mebbed, but just because I knew that I was getting closer and closer to the years where my kids are going to be going to school, and I had no interest or desire to use my benefits for GI Bill. So I was like, give it to them. At least it's something towards their college education. Is it going to cover everything? No, but it'll help a big bit. And so I transferred it all to them. But even now, there are two types of 100% disability from the VA. There's just plain Jane 100%, and then there's 100% permanent and total. And I got, so when I got informed last month that my disability had been increased, I was sitting there and I was waiting for them to tell me, like, is it PNT? Is it PNT? Like, come on, what is it? And so it took them. I had to wait for the letter to come in from the VA, and also to confirm, because I got on the phone with the VA after I looked at my phone app and saw it that it had been increased. I got on the phone. I was like, is this PNT? Because the difference with 100% or 100% PNT is the education for your children. With 100% PNT, if they were on your DEERS before you got out, they're going to college for free, complete tuition. And without it, and with just 100%, like, yeah, you get more money each month through disability, but you're not getting those education benefits for your kids of a completely free tuition. And so I was just like, I mean, I asked my wife, she's in the living room right now, and 3 rooms away. And if I were to be like, hey, babe, what happened when I looked at my phone and saw that my disability said 100% service connected, and then I found that out, I fell to the floor crying. I was flabbergasted. Just there are no words because I did not have them. I was just elated. I was relieved. It was magical and amazing and spectacular and wildly unbelievable all at the same time. I could not have fathomed. It was like, oh my god, like we're gonna be okay. Between the paycheck I'm making with CSX, which is good, very good paycheck, and then this increased disability, compensation each month from the VA, and now all three of our children are going to go to to college for free. Mind blown. So I know people always say it's like 100% is untouchable. No, 100% P&T is untouchable. Yeah, and then the 100% P&T also provides with it those education for your kids.
Is there a certain thing that triggers that allows them to then give you that kind of rating, the PNT rating?
I went through an advocacy group. They literally do all the legwork for you for increasing your rating. They hook you up with a doctor. They do their intake forms and get everything like that. And when I went to them, it's a and you can look them up. There's dozens of them all over, and I don't know that any one's better than the other, but I went through one called Veterans Guardian, and when I did all the intake with them, I had to send them my DD 214 and my discharge summary stuff and all my disability summary stuff and all of that. They came back to me and they said to me, in their mind, and I could say no, I don't want to go that way, but in their mind, the best way forward is to go and try to get the rating for my PTSD increased. Um, and so I was like, shit, this is gonna suck because now I got to talk to a stranger, a therapist, about all of my inner working demons and this, that, and the other, and all of the things that I deal with that I have a hard enough time talking to family and friends about. And now I got to talk to some random person and be completely open about everything. And they said, here's the kicker, they told me that when I have this sit down with the therapist and I have this interview and he or she is taking down all of these notes, to be completely open and honest and answer every question about your condition as if it was your worst day of being affected by it. I'm just like, oh fuck. Like how am I going to do this? So they go through they got all of that stuff together and then they sent it to me for review, and then I, in their pre postage envelopes that they sent with it all, send it up to the VA and they make their determination. I don't know necessarily how they make the determination, but I know that when, just give a little deep dive into this one, when the therapist um, sent the paperwork for me to eventually to approve and send off to the VA. At the bottom of her summary, which is like a 5-page type out of all of my all of my stuff going on up here, uh, it was the summary block was trying to remember, it's not going to be verbatim. It was uh, service member is presenting with PTSD, anxiety disorder, paranoia, and a couple other things listed in there. Not diagnoses, but situations, I guess, within. And at the bottom sentence, it said, "Case for increased rating is based on all things mentioned above, and service members presenting diagnoses mentioned above are severe." I'm just like, fuck. Like, I mean, like, you got to laugh to keep from crying at it. I'm not trying to make light of it, but it's one of those things where I was like, shit, man. Like, I knew I had some stuff rattling on up in there, but it's like they said, treat it like it's your worst day, and I guess based off of that, so my 100% combined disability rating, they don't go over 100%. Even though your stuff could be over 100% if you actually were to math it out and combine it. But I got 100% service connected disability, and then like 10% for tinnitus and the other shoulder and this, that, and the other. My PTSD rating is 100% in of itself. Yeah, I was just like, and so I often wonder. I look at that and I'm just like, how do I function on a day to day? And like one of the questions really was like, do you have issues or any um um do you have any times where you have just no desire or energy or care about being clean or brushing your teeth or any of that other stuff? Like, do you do you ever live in squalor? I was like, it's like I may be a lot of things. I may be crazy, but I'm sure as shit not disgusting. Like, I pride myself on being, clean and presentable. Like, I know there's issues going on up in here, and I hate being around people, and I'm paranoid about, this, that, and the third, and but like there are some things I can't allow myself to sit there and not be bathed and to live in my own squalor. It was just so weird, the questioning and whatnot. And I know it's going to be different for everybody, but and I don't want to make fun of anybody, so I apologize for laughing. But because I know that there are people who might have those issues, but it's just so weird, the line of questioning. And if I if I knew if I knew how they come to their decision, I would gladly tout that to the world and be like, look, I'm not saying take advantage, but I'm not saying get over on people, but take advantage of what you have at your disposal if you really do need it. And the sad part about it is, for some people, you can't tell if they're faking it till they make it, or if they're really needing those resources. But it's just one of those things where it's like, I would give the cheat codes to that kind of information all day every day if I had it. And I wish I did, because there are so many dudes I know who legitimately need and would benefit from having their disability rating increased, but get the runaround because they don't have the cheat codes. They don't have the information that would set them up for that decision being made in their benefit.
That's a lot of very personal stuff to give, and I appreciate you sharing that with me. It's really, really helpful. Not maybe not necessarily to me. I mean, it is helpful to me, right? But I know there's a lot of people out there, like you said, that have gone through the shit many, many times over, and they just either they don't have the capacity to reach out to somebody, or they don't know, or they just kind of push it off and fill it with other things like alcohol or gambling or driving cars too fast or like whatever it happens to be, right?
No, no, you're absolutely right, and that was a barrier I had to let down. Like, and just just this little snippet of information about that right there would have been something that, if you would have asked me about it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, probably wouldn't be having this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I will say that talking to the therapist, to get my rating increase, kind of opened the doors to um, not having that guard up as much about the conversations. But the biggest thing, honestly, man, and like that kind of, that eased into the scenario a little bit, into the conversations I can have now. But the biggest thing for me, man, and now with the kind of conversations I have, with you now, or with um, buddies that I've served with, or even random people that I've met, through TikTok or other apps or whatnot. It has opened my eyes with the people that I've come into contact with, or I've been introduced to, or just heard of and hear their story. And it's like, you know, I can't stay closed lipped on what I'm going through, what I've dealt with, what I've been through, if it means that somebody else who's going through my same shit as me could potentially friggin' benefit from it. If that person, you know, he, she, whoever, don't care if you've been in for a year, I don't care if you've been in for 35 years, if you can benefit from it, and I have the knowledge, I have the resources, or I've I've been in your shoes and I've found my way out, I have to at least, if you're willing to hear me, I have to give you that little bit in the toolbox if you want it. It's like, this is how I did it. This is what I'm doing. Not saying it will work for you, but here's an avenue. Here's a tool in the box that you can reach for and be like, oh shit, Brandon said this. Let's try this out today. You know what I mean? And that's my whole that's my whole shtick now. Is it's like, obviously doing everything I can for my family, and breaking myself for them, physically, at work, whether it be in the military, on the railroad, and there's a difference between the physicality of them both, so it's not too bad. Um, or pivot from that to, what can I do to help my fellow veterans, my fellow service members, whether they're out now or still currently serving, and they're coming to the end of that story like I did. And I'll tell you one thing, man. So, like, I made a video back when I was just gotten back to the States last year, shortly thereafter. Um, and anybody who's watching this, if you feel like going and seeing it, some of my videos on TikTok, I'm not going to advertise because they're goofy or stupid or really dark comedy or raunchy comedy. And but there are a few of them on there that I have made strictly, specifically for the benefit of service members, and one of them was telling that bit about my sergeant major telling me to view it as a story unto itself as opposed to a chapter of a story. And man, I'll tell you, when I said that and I made that video and I put it out there, the feedback I got off of that video was enough to carry me for the next 5 years, 10 years of trying to help out other people. It was astonishing, the feedback I got off of that. Like, it wasn't some crazy viral thing, but the however many comments and the likes I got on it, and the messages back from people being like, dude, thank you, that's awesome. That's exactly the perspective I needed to hear. I'd never thought of it that way. I was just like, preaching to the choir. I'd never thought of it that way either. If you're thanking me, I got to thank him, because I didn't have that tool in my box until he said it to me. And now I can share it with you. And that's what I need to be doing now, is I need to share tools that I have to get people to that finish line, to get people to that accepted stage, or that, um, get them out of their own head for a few minutes and make them see another angle that they can approach from. Like, that's my whole thing nowadays. That I just, whatever way I can, whenever I can, I want to be helpful to my fellow veterans, whether they were same era as me, next generation, or the generation before, so on and so on and so on. Like, what can I do? Because I'm not trying to sit here and be braggadocious by any stretch of the imagination, but so far, where from my perspective alone, I've had it really good, that transition, and then that military life, and that that unknown, and that that resolution with that, and then to where I am now. I've really, really beyond fortunate, beyond blessed to be in the position that I'm at now, whether it's physical location, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, on and on and on. I'm extremely blessed that I've had the proper people in my life at the proper times. Insert information here, insert, kicking the ass there, insert, helping hand up, from the ground there, that kind of stuff. And benefited very, very well, because I took the resources that they were offering me and I fucking ran with it. And I just want to give somebody else that same opportunity. Like, that's, if you take these resources, maybe this particular thing won't work for you, but it could help. But it's a starting off point. It's something at the very least. And then, okay, well, I tried it and it got me going, but it's not going to sustain me. Okay, well then try something else, man. Keep finding that next thing until you're on your path that works for you. And that, because that's what happened with me. And if it can work for me, a guy who's by all intents and purposes not the smartest, not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but applies myself nonetheless. If you apply yourself, it can work. I'm not saying it will, but it can. And that's my whole thing now, is how can I make it work for you? How can I help you make it work and get that Venn diagram of what your plan going forward is?
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I hope you're doing well today. I want to have a quick conversation with you guys, if I may. And if you're watching this, please stick around to the end. I think it might be beneficial to those in the military who may be getting out of the Army or the military in general soon, or have already gotten out and are struggling with it a little bit. So I had a conversation with a friend earlier, and this friend told me that their significant other is having a very hard time coming to terms with the fact that they're going to be getting out of the Army soon, and has brought up a whole lot of concerns about the future and looking for jobs and benefits and retirement plans and all of that stuff. All the concerns that you have. And believe me, as a person whose career ended early and not by choice from medical retirement, I know those fears and those concerns all too well. But you can't let those fears and those concerns cripple you. You can't let those fears and those concerns drive you apart from the people who are in your life that love and care for you and are there for you. There is, in fact, life after the military. There is, in fact, light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to keep moving forward to find it and get to it. For anybody struggling with the transition, let me impart some wisdom upon you that was imparted upon me by my sergeant major before I left Germany and the Army as a whole. He told me not to look at my time in the Army as a chapter of a book, but a book unto itself. He said, now that my time in the Army is done, I need to close that book and put it away and start a new book and fill it with all the events and memories and good and bad and everything else in my life that's going to happen from this point forward. And to only look at the book that was my time in the military every so often, look back at it fondly and remember, and not to live in that book. He said the ones who can't put that book away and move past it are the ones that fail in life. And the ones who can put it away and start a new book and a new life are the ones who succeed. I don't know if this applies to you or anybody out there, but if it does, please listen to that very carefully, okay? Look back at the book fondly and reminisce, but don't dwell in the past. Keep moving forward always, and we're here for you. Love you guys. Take it easy.
Let me ask you something on that along those lines, and it's about mentorship specifically, but more abstractly. What I hear you saying and what I understand from what you're saying is not only did you have people around you, but you also had the capacity to be responsive to what they said and to hear and take heed and internalize what they said. Because, you get advice all the time. I generally, I give advice sometimes, and sometimes I kick myself in the ass. I'm like, yeah, you probably should have just did it a different way. People got to figure out their own shit. But
The biggest thing, man, honestly, my ability to take advice from people is from so many years of not taking advice from people. So many years of being like, no, I know what I'm doing. I can handle this on my own. I don't need your help. I don't need your advice. I appreciate it, but this is what I'm doing. And, doing it my own way and being stubborn to, those other angles, those other vantage points, or God bless it, even personal experience and tells of people who've been like, I tried it, this, and not even like a vague, generalized, broad spectrum kind of advice, but like, look, Brandon, I did exactly what you're doing in this specific instance, exactly the way you're doing it, and it blew up in my face. Well, it won't do that for me. I know what I'm doing. I can handle this. I'm a grown ass man. I don't need or depend on anybody to make my marriage work, to get this opportunity, this promotion. I don't need any, I'll take care of it on my own. And then shit doesn't work out and shit doesn't, it shit blows up in your face, and it's like, man, at what point am I going to shut the fuck up and just hear somebody out? At what point am I going to stop being that guy is like, well, I know, dude, but I got this, or, cutting people off or interrupting. It's like, I appreciate it, but I'm doing it, no, hear what they have to say. What can it hurt? You failed so many times. I mean, the definition of an insanity is trying something over and over and over and over and over again, the same exact way and expecting a different result. And that was me in a nutshell. And I was like, at what point am I going to stop getting in my own way and thinking that I have all the fucking answers and actually just, give it a shot? What could it hurt? It's if this fails, it's just one more way that it's failed. But at least it's different than the last time. If this doesn't quite pan out to the definition of success that I've set forth for myself, and it's just slightly less, what's it really going to hurt? Because at least it's still a measure of success, and then you try it and it's like, holy shit, not only did it work, but it worked above and beyond what I could have expected it to, because I shut up and I got out of my own way and I listened to somebody who's had that perspective and that experience and that life, that life moment where it, that exact thing or something extremely similar happened to them, because like I said, I'm a stubborn dude. It took me years to get out of my own head. It took me years to get out of my own way and quit stepping on my own foot, quit shutting doors in my own face. And it wasn't probably until these past, I want to say 4 years, 5 years of repeated failures and and not only repeated failures, but repeated, you know, going at it with the same approach. This situation, but I'm going at it this way. This different situation, but I'm going at it the same kind of way, like that. That head down, driving forward. Here am I. Here's my objective. Let's go. That same. And then just tweak minutely here and there based on given scenario or situation. And finally, it was. I can't say there was one. I can't say that there was any one particular epiphany moment where I had like, oh my God, this person was right. But not that I can recall anyway off the top of my head. But it was just like frustration with the failure and understanding that the failure was mine because I wouldn't accept that advice or that helping hand or whatever from somebody else. That I had to carve my own way. I had to make my own. And man, once I got out of my own way, once I got out of my own head and I stopped stepping on my own toe and or pardon the expression, dick, and finally started listening to people that actually had that knowledge and know-how and experience and history and wisdom, real wisdom. There's an old saying, in order to be old and wise, you first got to be young and dumb. And I don't want to say that I'm wise yet, but man, the amount of wisdom I've gotten from listening to people with wisdom and taking advice has helped me and benefited me tenfold. So if somebody is coming at you, if somebody's coming at you with just their idea or their opinion and no real tangible knowledge or know-how for any particular situation, take and do with it what you will. Fine. Well, you don't know anything about this and you don't have it, and it's not even remotely similar to the kind of thing you're talking about, what I'm going through. Do with it what you will. Fine. But if somebody comes to you and they're genuinely trying to help you and they have real knowledge and experience about your same situation or something similar, or how they got through something maybe even worse and drastically different than what you're dealing with, give them the benefit of the doubt and just listen. Because if they're offering you that, it could really, truly be. It's not guaranteed. Nothing in life is, but it can. What's the worst that could happen from you saying, all right, let me try it your way this one time, as opposed to doing it the same way I've been doing it the past however many? That's where I came to that. And like I said, I wish it was one particular moment where I saw the light and I had that epiphany, eureka moment. If there is one, I don't recall it. It might have been just so small that it's like, not that drastically important at the end of the day. Smaller scenario, smaller situation. But it was, like I said, just years and years and years of charting my own path and not caring what anybody else had to say about it.
On that same token, and I imagine you probably think about this, you've got teenage kids and preteens. If you could go back and spend, first of all, we'd have to figure out where and when you would actually be bumping into yourself, like a time and a place and maybe a mental space. But if you had the opportunity to go back to your 16-year-old self and just not necessarily give advice, but just sit down and have like a 30-minute chat with your 16-year-old self, what would that chat look like? Like, how would that go?
Oh man, I've actually have thought about this before. If I could go back and have a conversation with my younger self, I would tell myself, don't be in a rush to don't be in a rush to grow up. Don't be in a rush to get married young, have kids. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my son, and I had him at a young-ish age. I was still married, but still, if I could go back, I'd say, don't be in a rush to grow up. Don't be in a rush to achieve these crazy goals that you don't even know how to you don't even know how to start on this route yet. You have all of these dreams and ideas, because I had more than just military rattling around in my head. When I was 16 years old, I still thought the possibility of going to college and becoming like a marine biologist or something like that was possible, because I'd always dreamed about stuff like that. And oh man, I love the water. I've never been to the ocean, but I love it anyway, and I would love to go there. So maybe I could be a marine biologist, or maybe I could do this, that, and the other. And like there are certain things I don't want to. I wouldn't want to go back and tell myself that don't dream, because you got to dream, you got to wonder, you got to think big sometimes. But I would tell myself to manage expectations, learn to manage expectations, learn that giving it your all is not always going to guarantee success, as much as that sucks to hear. Because I can't tell you how many times I've given it 150%, 160%, and still been the guy who wasn't selected, or the guy who didn't finish first, or whatever. Um, manage expectations. Don't be afraid to um, don't be afraid to take chances and try something new. Don't be set in your ways. Um, and then really, yeah, don't force yourself to grow up more than you need to before you need to. Enjoy your time. And again, it sounds terrible, because I do have my kids, but enjoy your time as a young single dude. Don't feel like you have to settle down and have kids right now, because you because you if you don't do it now, you never will, kind of thing, or whatever was going through my head at the time. Um, yeah, really just manage expectations, but take chances at the same time. Like gamble on yourself, but manage expectations.
So I don't want to go too far over time. I know we're close, but I do want to open up the floor on your end and find out if there's anything that we haven't discussed, any additional things that you might want to talk about that we haven't covered yet, or anything in general.
I would say so. Just really kind of, if we could, just kind of go back, circle back around to like the what I would want to leave anybody who's watching this with, veteran, or spouse, or a kid, or even somebody who's not affiliated with the military at all, is understanding that there's never only one way out of any kind of bad situation you're in, and there are always people in your life who you can reach out to get you back up. I always say, one of my favorite mottos, and it's actually on a T-shirt too, is keep moving forward. uh, you're gonna get knocked down by something damn near every day. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, relationships, what have you. Something's going to knock you on your ass every single day, just about. It's life. That's what it does. But the goal, the aspiration should always be, however that happens, whatever that is that happens, I am able to get back up on my feet and keep moving forward. And you know, if you're not able to do it on your own, if you're not able to stand up, if you can't walk, you crawl. Or sorry, no, I was saying that backwards. If you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you crawl. If you can't crawl, you bite, scratch, and claw. And if you can't do any of that, you ask somebody to help you up and keep going to that finish line. You find a way to always move forward. Progression is forward. You don't go backwards. You don't stay stagnant. If you allow yourself to, like we were talking about earlier, feed into your own feelings, if your own emotions, you're just digging that hole deeper, and finding it impossible to climb out. But if you understand and you realize that you're staying in that one spot, you're staying stagnant, and you can't move forward on your own. You absolutely have to let go of ego and pride, or worry of embarrassment or reprisal, and reach out for help, and like really, really, really seek help. And it's that stigma of, if I come up on the block with this issue, how is it going to affect my career, my life, my relationships, and all that stuff? And you and I are products of a generation where, if you, well, let me rephrase, because the mindset's changing a lot since you and I, first joined, and all of that stuff. But like when you first came in, 20, how long have you been out now? Sorry.
I've been out since end of 21.
You've been out for almost 6 years, and you served for 26.
I came in 96 and I got out 2021 or 20, yeah, 2021, end of 21.
So you joined the Army 10 years before I did. And in 1996, while I wasn't in at that point, I can guarantee that in 1996, the stigma of mental health issues was a career killer.
It wasn't even a talking point at that point.
And if you had come up and said, like you get back from, not saying that you were or weren't there, but you get back from Bosnia, because the Bosnia situation happened in the late 90s, and you go to your first line and you say, I'm having real issues, dealing with what all I saw over there, with the injustices that happened to those people, and I think I need help. I need to go to behavioral health. You probably couldn't comprehend even making that statement, whether it happened to you or somebody else in that era, for fear of, well, I'm going to get kicked out for being crazy. That's going to ruin my. Oh, you want to go to the E5 board next month? Well, that's not happening now, because you're having mental health issues and you can't cope. You can't hang. And in 2006, when I was in Iraq, it was the same deal. I mean, like, and like I was, I don't know about your deployment history, but you've been in all the time I was, and then some. And 2006, that was 2005, 2006, that was the height of it all in Iraq. And I was in 425 out of Alaska. We were dubbed the Bloody Brigade. And so many people wounded, and so many people killed that year, 06, 07 in Iraq. And and even then, I felt like if I went to my first line and I was like, man, I'm just having a really hard time, coping with, my buddy Marshall getting blown up and, and killed, last year or, 5 months ago. And it just, I don't know how to deal with it. Even at that time, I would have thought that my career would have, like I just committed career suicide. And so obviously that stigma has really, really, really fallen by the wayside, at least, in a lot of respects, not entirely, but still people even now, I hear dudes being like, what do I do? How do I go about it? How do I go and tell them that I need to go and talk to, a therapist or whatever. Tell them, tell them that you need to go and talk. You don't have to tell them what it's about. You don't have to tell them why. You just say, I need to go and I need to schedule an appointment with this person. And then you go and talk and you do it and you get the help you need, and don't worry about what they're going to do to you, because they're not going to do shit to you. They cannot. And you're doing yourself a disservice by resting on your laurels and believing that you're going to face some sort of career reprisal for it. And even outside of the military, people still don't get the help they need in a lot of respects, for shame within their family, or same thing, fear of, like I saw something traumatic, or something traumatic happened to me in my childhood, and so I would like to get help for it, but I can't, because I have this work and I have this, I have to keep maintaining my work in order to show that I'm valuable and, and productive to them, so I can either just stay employed as it is, or get that promotion when it comes up, at the end of the year, try to become that, that managerial spot, and, show that I'm capable of taking this company forward, or being somebody who's able to get stuff done here and there and the other, and manage all of these people and departments and projects. It's like, well, the more you let it fester and the more you let it set, again, it's like it's standing there and just digging yourself down, and you'll never reach out on your own. Once you start digging down like that, you've got to reach up for help, somebody to throw down a rope, or somebody to put down a ladder or something. And that's my whole biggest thing now, is just like trying to advocate to people, trying to, just implore them, get the help if you need it. And if there's one thing I could leave it with, is, you know get the help if you need it. If you feel that you need this kind of help, if you feel you need that kind of help, mental, physical, emotional, what have you, you know, you don't have to go and get professional help at a therapist or a psychiatrist. If you're religious, talk to your pastor or your priest. They keep that stuff in confidence. And sometimes it's not even getting any kind of counseling or medication. Sometimes it's just talking about it and letting yourself feel that emotion that had happened to you when a parent passed away, or whatever, and grieve and cry and get it out. Sometimes that's enough to like give you clarity of mind, that you're like, holy shit, like I am allowed to feel the stuff that's affecting me, and now I can go forward with that. I mean, it's different for everybody, but my whole thing now is get the help if you need it, help service members as much as I possibly can in whatever way I can. And I can't stress that enough. If there's any advice I can give ever, you know, I'm happy to hear. Anybody hits me up, hey, I'm having this kind of situation. I'm dealing with something. If I can take a phone call, I'll take a phone call. If I have time, if all I can do is text, I'll text. And I just want to emphasize that in spades. Get help if you need it, and don't worry about the what ifs of your relationships or your career. If people really, and especially relationships too, right? If people really love and care for you, they're not going to ditch you because you're struggling. So that's really all I can really circle back with, is just kind of touch base on that one more time. No matter what, get help, get help, get help, get help. And, there are endless resources available to you, whether it's random guys like us or, family, friends, professionals, what have you. There's somebody somewhere all the time that is willing to reach out and help for any number of situations that you might be going through that you can't see a way out of.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to wrap it up on. That's it's what you said earlier, right? It's the bouncing back, the this too shall pass kind of thing that you have to deal with, where if you do go and reach out for help, whether something happens or not because of that, like it's not permanent. But losing a family member by not getting help because you can't get over your own anxiety or your own mental disorder or whatever it happens to be that's holding you back or causing you to be angry or causing you to be in a certain way with somebody, like you can't get that back.
And let me preface real quick too before we close up. I'm not just saying this from a point of, well, I know what I'm talking about because of, whatever. I'll be completely candid. In 2017, I made an attempt on my own life. December 13th, 2017, at about 11:23 p.m., I had my 9mm Glock to my temple, ready to end it all right there because of the situation that I was dealing with my ex-wife and my son and trying to see him. They live in Michigan. I was at Fort Bragg, and her not letting me have him for Christmas and not knowing when I was going to get him. And it spiraled. I didn't think it was affecting me as bad as it was. And then I went to a friend's house. My wife and I went to a friend's house for food and drinks, and then the drinks, were continuous. Something triggered me that night. I don't know what, I don't know when, where, why, or how, but I left their house by foot, walked home 3 miles in the dark and the cold, and I went to the bedroom, got my Glock, and went to the back porch, and it was like that. Something in me that night told me to reach out to somebody first. Make a call, to just pick a random number in your phone, make a random phone call. If they answer the phone, you tell them what's wrong, you tell them what you're dealing with, and let them try to talk you down if they do. If they don't, it's lights out. And I randomly called my first sergeant, and he answered, and he talked me down. And by about the time that he talked me down and got me to put the pistol down, my wife had gotten our friends drove her home, and freaking out and mad at me because he didn't know what the hell was going on until my first son's like, "Hey, put her on the phone real quick. I'll explain it to her." And then she got the pistol and removed her from the situation and all that stuff. But more so beyond just that, beyond my own experience, one of the two bracelets that I wear, the KIA bracelets, for lack of a better term, is for Staff Sergeant Jason Matthew Lowe. I don't know if you'll be able to read that or not, but he was one of my best friends when I was at Fort Bragg. He'd been over to my house dozens and dozens of times, Super Bowls, fight nights, the Mayweather Pacquiao fight, poker nights, all of that stuff. I left Fort Bragg and he was still there, and went over to Germany, and then they deployed and they went to Afghanistan in 2019, 2020. He got back from Afghanistan, and then he took his life on August 5th. Well, to the best of our knowledge, it was August 15th that he took his life. He did follow through with a bullet to his head, and nobody knows why. Nobody had any idea why. He never reached out to anyone. He never told anyone there was any issues. He had just gotten back from ALC. He was ready to pin on E6. He was dating a girl. He had a new truck. Family life was good. I know his father's. They had a great, loving relationship, buddies. Nobody knew what was wrong. Not me over in Germany. Not any of the guys still there at Bragg or in my old battalion. Nobody had any idea. And he was given a 4-day weekend once he got back from ALC. And then Tuesday morning rolls around and he wasn't there. So one of the guys went to his house and that's where they found him. And so when I say that, it is vitally important for you to reach out, this is why. This is all the reason right there that I say for people to reach out and get help. Make a call to somebody, reach out. It doesn't matter if it's somebody you served with. It doesn't matter if it's a random stranger, a licensed professional that can talk to you about this kind of stuff. If you're going through those dark, self-deprecating, harmful thoughts and ideations, talk to somebody. Please, 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 I'm begging you to get help. And if it's me, I don't care when, where, how, I'll fucking be there. And if it's not me, if it's, if it's, John or somebody else, or, just please, I'm begging you to, reach out for help. I wish Jay had reached out to somebody. I really do. It didn't have to be me, just anybody. I wish he had told somebody what he was going through. I wish he had told somebody what he was dealing with, and he had gotten help, and he was still here with us because he was really, truly, honest to God, one of the good ones. And and I miss him, and I know his family misses him, and all the other buddies we had at Fort Bragg and he served with before that miss him, and don't allow yourself to give a permanent solution to a temporary problem, because unfortunately whatever Jay was dealing with, whatever demons he was fighting, they got the better of him that day, and he gave a permanent solution to a temporary problem that he could have gotten help for and he could still be here with us with. And I've had ideations of permanent solutions to temporary problems myself, but when I feel that way, I've demanded of myself to reach out and get the help that I need, and let some come up on the block and let somebody know that I'm struggling. And I have to, not just for my family. I can't sit here and say that, well, the only reason I'm alive is because of my family. Because if they, God forbid, if something happened to them, well, they're not here, so I guess I can just pull the trigger now. You have to find reasons for yourself to keep on going, to keep moving forward. And if you need help, I will help you. And there are so many other people out there who will too. So I apologize for the. Sorry. It's it's um, it's funny how your perspective shifts. When I was a kid, when I was younger, I thought people who committed suicide were weak. I said it. I admit it. I said it. Like, you're weak. How dare you? Go ahead and do it if you're going to do it. That kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Just that dumb, stupid perspective. And then somebody does it, and somebody else does it, and I never knew what could drive somebody to trying to attempt to take their own life until I attempted it myself. And man, and then after Jay, I completely changed my tune. I was like, Jay, mm, one of the strongest, smartest, funniest, full of life dudes I've ever known in my entire life, and if he if he could be in a position where he thought that was the way out, it was bad, and he had to have been battling it for a long time, and there was nothing about Jay that was weak. So like that completely shifted my perspective. And I know that it's not weakness to do that. You just don't see a way out, and you can't stand the pain anymore. So find another way out. Reach out for help, and I'll leave it at that. I apologize.
Nothing to apologize for, man. Yeah, it's
It still feels like it was yesterday. It still feels like it was just yesterday, and the hurt will never go away. Of not having him around, and or any of the other guys that I lost in combat either. Um, but it's a different kind of hurt with somebody when somebody takes their life as opposed to dying before their time on different. It's always going to hurt no matter what. I know that. I mean, but it's just a different kind of pain. With the guys that I lost in combat. The situation was completely outside of my control, with mortars or with roadside bombs or this, that, and the other. Um, and when my father died of his heart attack, outside of my control, still hurts, still painful, but drastically different kind of pain than when somebody sees that the only way to stop the pain that they're dealing with and the situation they're in is to just end it. And I really cannot stress enough how I wish nobody would ever be in that position again, but I know they will be. But all I can say to that now is that if you're in that position, if you're in that mindset, reach out for help, and if it's to me, I promise you, I'll help you.
yeah. They've got to do it. You can't lead them to it. You can scream at the top of your lungs and try to reach out and help people, and that's why I'm using this platform. Not just the worst case scenarios, but also some of the other scenarios as well. That the same as you said. Like if I have a voice, if I have a platform to speak on, why not use it for good and try to help people out?
Honest to God, it's awesome. It really is, and I commend you for it sincerely. Like it's more so than just the obvious of trying to keep people from taking their own lives. You are providing a resource and a platform for your voice, and your knowledge and experience, and your connection with people to help in all sorts of different facets, professionally, um, whether it's military or otherwise, and resources and tools, to use for so many different scenarios. And I think it's seriously awesome. That's why I agreed to do the interview with you, man. I think it's truly, truly, truly worthwhile stuff.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. It actually is the fuel that I need sometimes to get through and do the 18 hours of work and post the shit to everywhere.
Yeah, I do. It sometimes, you don't do it for affirmation, right? But affirmation doesn't hurt either.
No, yeah, I mean more so in the form of what you just said. Like you genuinely feel that it's something that's important.
It's not self-gratifying affirmation. It's affirmation of you're doing the right kind of thing here. You know what I mean? Like as hard as this may be to do, it's good that you're doing it, and this kind of thing it needs to be out there. It needs to be in the ether. So that's you understood exactly. Yeah, you get it.
Yeah. It's not about the, hey, you've got a sexy radio voice and like,
Well, not that you don't, but
thank you. Appreciate it. So yeah, let's again, I really, really want to be respectful of your time. I can do this shit usually 4 or 5 hours straight if I really needed to, but I want to be respectful of your time, of your wife's time, of your kids' time. Make sure you got time to spend with them if it's past dinner or not past dinner yet. But I did want to find out if people do want to reach out to you, um, where would you point them to? Like what social media or whatever? Don't give me your email address or your phone number because I don't want people to like bombard.
I'm on TikTok. That's probably um, one of the easiest ways to find me. My name on TikTok is Brandon Fett underscore the data Brandon Fett 19 underscore the Datalorian, because because my name, it really is Brandon, and I'm a massive fan of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian. So kind of the name. If you can't figure out why the name, you're not doing your research. um, but also on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. My name on Facebook is just Brandon Alborg, Alborg. Is my actual last name. Um, and yeah, and if you whether it's via TikTok or Instagram. Instagram, by the way, is also Brandon Fett 19. Um, Facebook is the only one that actually has my it's actually my real name. So if you want to see what I'm about, not that I'm asking for followers or likes or any of that other stuff. If you want to see what I'm about before you contact me, and whether it be for advice or for help or for anything, by all means, you can see the more exaggerated side of myself on TikTok with the comedy and such. But also, what I really truly do feel about like what it means to be a service member, what it means to commit yourself to something bigger than yourself, and to be there for other people now that I'm out and I have this perspective of life in the military, life after the military, because there is in fact life after Army, life after Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. It's hard for some of us to see that, but there is. And so if you want to see what I'm about before you reach out to me, or even if you don't, and you just want to, if you got going through an issue, and after seeing this interview with John, and you feel like I'm somebody that you might want to go to for advice, for help, by all means. I won't turn down any kind of exchanges or back and forths. Anytime, day or night, if I'm available. I will preface that when I'm at work, my phone is off. That's a requirement for the railroad. So if you call or you text and I don't answer, it's probably because I'm at work. But I've said this to other people too. If you leave me a message and you leave me a name or number, email, whatever to get you back to you at, I assure you, I give you my word, I will.
Sounds good, man. I really, really, really appreciate your time. Also say thank you to your wife and your family for me for allowing you to give me this time. I know it's a big time commitment, but I think we had a really good discussion. I enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it.
Honest to God, man, and like I said, it's something I couldn't have done before, but I'm very happy to be able to do now. And so if it helps one person, mission fulfilled. So I thank you for the opportunity, sir.
No, I appreciate you reaching back out and getting back in touch with me and doing this with me, man. So for everybody out there in the interworlds, we will have links to all the things that we discussed within the show. We'll have links to Brandon's socials, and there will be timestamps in the bottom. I should say that in the beginning, but I always forget. There'll be timestamps if you want to jump around, and I'm sure there'll be some little content snippets here and there from me and Brandon both for you to check out on the interwebs. So until next time, I appreciate everybody sticking with us to the end, and thank you very much, and we'll see you all later.
Take it easy. Thank you, John.